In this episode, we talk about the significance of the Rajasthan Chief Minister announcing a caste-based survey in the state. We also talk about why India winning its opening World Cup match against Australia is a big deal. But first, we talk about the Israel-Palestine conflict, which has been going on since the late 1940s. Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. On Saturday, the 7th of October, Hamas, the militant group ruling the Gaza Strip, mounted one of the most audacious attacks on Israel through land, sea, and air.
So essentially, there were Hamas fighters who came in through the land borders, where they broke the fence and came in to the Israeli side.
That's Indian Express's diplomacy editor, Shubhajit Roy.
They used the sea route and they used innovative technique of using paragliders to come and be armed and started attacking civilians in Israel. So the paragliders, they landed and they started firing at the civilians in Israel. Now that was the most unusual sort of form of attack. And what was different was that this time, usually the Hamas, when it attacks usually the military officials, security agencies in Israel, as well as the security and military installations. This time, they targeted civilians, unarmed civilians, which included women, children, elderly, and even unarmed men. And not only did they fire at them, kill them, but also took some of them hostage and took them back to Gaza.
The Gaza Strip is a narrow piece of land wedged between Israel, Egypt, and the Mediterranean, and is mainly inhabited by Palestinians. This area, which is controlled by Hamas, is home to over 2 million people and is considered one of the most densely populated regions in the world.
So this is being seen as one of the most audacious attacks and a dangerous escalation in the confrontation, in the conflict, which has sort of been normalized, where the two sides had this live and let live kind of an attitude, an arrangement between the Israelis and Hamas that existed for the last few years. So now, because civilians have been targeted, civilians have been attacked and taken hostage, Israel is now facing questions of, firstly, huge systemic failure, from intelligence failure to operations failure to response failure.
And this is because the attack on Saturday came as a complete shock to Israel.
In fact, it happened on Saturday daybreak, early morning. Now, Israel actually, as a society, it takes its weekends very seriously. People actually rest and they don't work. So the security agencies have been accused of taking it really relaxed during the weekends. And so this was the time when they were in holiday mode. And in fact, it marked almost to the day the last big audacious attack. But those were by two countries, by Egypt and Syria. They had attacked Israel in 1973 on the occasion of Yom Kippur, which is called the Yom Kippur War of 1973. And 50 years later, using a weekend, an early morning, the Hamas militant group, they have struck at Israel and have sort of really dented the credibility and the reputation of Israel as sort of a secure state, where intelligence is said to be a very high order, very high caliber. And these are tough questions people in Israel, innocent civilians, people are asking, and they will be asked.
He says that as of now, more than 1,100 people have been killed, and that between 130 to 150 have been taken hostage, including children, women, and the elderly.
Which is the most surprising element in this particular attack, where innocent civilians have been targeted and they are not collateral damage in a conflict. Usually that's how it happens. That's how innocent civilians get trapped in a conflict like this. So yes, so it's been a big surprise and is being seen as a colossal intelligence failure on the part of the Israelis.
Now, shortly after Hamas's attack, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that Israel was at war and that Palestinians would have to pay a heavy price. In fact, the government was also quoted saying that this was Israel's 9/11.
Equating it with the September 11 attacks in the US. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has been facing a lot of challenge at home, domestically, politically, because of the judicial reforms. And it is said that, a lot of security agencies, even within the government, and there were protests against Netanyahu. So he was obviously distracted with that. It is also being said that, Netanyahu has possibly not invested enough in the intelligence system in Israel. So these are all kinds of hard questions that are being asked. So Israel, obviously, because it's such a severe attack on its innocent citizens, it has to respond now.
He says that right now the Israeli Prime Minister is under tremendous pressure to respond disproportionately against Hamas.
So they have started bombing in Gaza. What they say are targets where Hamas leadership or Hamas network is based out of. So they have already started bombing in Gaza. Also, they have done a siege of Gaza, which is essentially blocking to cut electricity, to stop food, fuel supplies, essential commodity supplies. So all these are being seen as a tactic, as a retaliation to the attack by the Hamas group. So Israeli government, Israeli political leadership will have to respond, taking into account the civilian casualties they might have to incur. Also, they have to first get the hostages freed that are right now in Hamas's custody. And these 100 plus Israelis who have been taken hostages, have been kidnapped. That poses a very serious challenge as a security challenge for Prime Minister Netanyahu to address.
Shubhajit says that one of the biggest casualties of this recent attack will be the normalization process that was being worked on between Israel and the Arab world.
And the latest issue was where US was working on a normalization of relationship between Saudi Arabia and Israel, where the two arch rivals in the region, the two big powers in the region who don't see eye to eye, they would have normalized the relationship. And that could have meant that the Palestinian cause would have suffered. So by doing this attack, that whole normalization process, that whole process of bringing down the tension, ushering in peace in the region, and moving beyond the Palestinian issue, that was being seen as the end result and outcome, that will suffer. So it is being seen as people who didn't want this deal to happen, this peace to happen, and also people who thought they will become irrelevant and this Palestine cause would not be front and center anymore. Probably it was in their interest to carry out this attack.
At the moment, he says the primary blame is being placed on Iran. And this is because Hamas receives patronage from the Middle Eastern nation, which has also backed the militant group Hezbollah.
So that is how we can sort of come to the conclusion that, probably naysayers of the normalization and the peace deal, or the critics of the peace deal, probably would not have wanted normalization, and therefore they have carried out the attack.
Now, shortly after the Hamas attack, Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed shock at what he called terrorist attacks and conveyed solidarity with Israel.
So essentially, it was perceived to be siding, the whole tone and framing was seen to be siding with Israel at this moment. And in fact, India, because has been a victim of terror attacks, because of the 26/11 and other terror attacks, it actually, and in the 26/11, Israelis and Jews in India were also targeted. So from that perspective, India has taken a position, at least the Prime Minister's tweets have taken a position where terror attacks cannot be seen to be condoned and they have to be condemned. So that's why there was almost an unambiguous sort of siding with Israel in the first comments. But the Ministry of External Affairs has still not come out with a statement from the government side.
But it's important to note that India's stance in this conflict did not always lean towards Israel. Shubhajit says that India's political attitude towards the nation was set quite firmly after independence.
When our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi, father of the nation, they both vowed to support the Palestinian cause as they rejected the idea of two nations on the basis of religion. Because back home, at home, the two-nation theory and the division of India, partition of India on the basis of religion, and India and Pakistan, was being opposed to by these two leaders. So they thought that they have to apply the same principle. So they opposed the idea of two nations on the basis of religion. So they were firmly supported the Palestinian cause through the years, and that guided India's actions over the years.
But he says things began to change in the late 80s and early 90s, when the normalizations of diplomatic relations took place between India and Israel.
And there were solid reasons for that, was that Israel became a partner for India when it comes to defense needs. So from the 62 war with China, or 65 wars and 71 wars with Pakistan, as well as, the 1999 war with Pakistan and the Kargil, in all these wars, Israel came out to be a supplier of defense equipment, ammunition for India at times of need. So in 1992, the diplomatic relations were established with Israel when P.V. Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister. And that normalization actually over the next 30 years, and now 30 years that the relationship has been established, defense relationship, security relationship and technology relationship, they have become the mainstay of the ties.
And while these strengthening of ties started during the Manmohan Singh government, he says that they have been elevated to a much higher level under the current administration.
Where all these elements of defense and security, which was earlier talked about in hushed tones and it was not visible, that came out. And now it's a much more open public articulation of defense and security relationship that now takes place between India and Israel. So from India, from earlier first 50 years being leaning towards Palestine, actually moved towards a much more strategic partnership, strategic relationship with Israel. So that shift and evolution, that arc has been very, very interesting and very, very complicated.
And next we talk about Rajasthan. On Sunday, Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot announced that the state government will conduct a caste-based survey in Rajasthan, which will be going to the polls next month. This announcement comes just days after Bihar published the results of its caste census, revealing that backward classes make up over 60% of the state's population. These results are also seen as a way to revive identity-based politics in Bihar, which had taken a back seat since 2014 due to the rising popularity of the BJP, whose politics are rooted in a combination of Hindutva and welfare. Now, Bihar's results have sparked a nationwide demand for a caste census, particularly by parties in the opposition alliance now called the India Bloc. In fact, yesterday, senior Congress leader Rahul Gandhi said that the Congress Working Committee had unanimously agreed to support a nationwide caste census.
इसमें कोई पॉलिटिकल कैलकुलेशन नहीं है. हम हिंदुस्तान का जो मैस है, जो 50, 60, 70, 80% हिंदुस्तान की जो आबादी है, उसकी हिस्सेदारी की बात कर रहे हैं और वो हिस्सेदारी देकर ही हम रहेंगे. ये हमने निर्णय ले लिया है. कास्ट सेंसस होगा और हिंदुस्तान के गरीबों की जो हिस्सेदारी बनती है वो उनको मिलेगी और वो काम कांग्रेस करके दिखाएगी. पहला सवाल.
Gandhi also mentioned that 4 Congress-ruled states, Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, Himachal Pradesh and Rajasthan, will also conduct caste surveys. Now, to talk about Rajasthan's plan for a caste survey, my colleague Utsa Sarmin speaks to Indian Express's Deep Mukherjee. Deep reports on Rajasthan politics for the paper.
So Deep, can you begin by telling us how significant caste-based or identity-based politics is in Rajasthan? Yeah, so the political scenario in Rajasthan is driven by caste, and every caste group has their own social pressure groups which routinely hold caste mahapanchayats, which we are especially seeing in this election year, where several caste mahapanchayats of communities such as Jats, Rajputs, Brahmins have been held, where they further demanding greater representation both economically, socially, or even like in the public life, like more MLAs or MPs. So caste is the main factor when it comes to politics in Rajasthan, and it has a history behind it. The very fact is Rajasthan was a feudal state where Jagirdars and various princely states were controlling the present territory, the erstwhile Rajputana, which is in Rajasthan, a collection of all those princely states after they acceded to India. So because of the feudal nature of the state, the politics in Rajasthan has also been revolving around caste. So, for example, like after independence, when the first Congress government in the state initiated land reforms, it resulted in freeing farmers' lands from the control of Jagirdars and giving the lands to the farmers who would irrigate those lands. As a result, the farming community, such as the Jats, they became traditional supporters of the Congress, which initiated the land reforms. At the same time, the Rajput Jagirdars and their representatives, they supported parties such as the Ram Rajya Parishad, the Jan Sangh, which is of course the predecessor of the BJP. So ever since that time, from early 50s, there were clear demarcations of various castes and their allegiances to political parties.
Right, and now Ashok Gehlot has announced a caste-based survey for Rajasthan. Do we know what he hopes to achieve from this survey?
Yeah, so the first thing is that the Ashok Gehlot government announced the caste survey right after the results of a similar survey in Bihar were announced earlier this month. So the Bihar survey has shown that backward castes are in the majority, the combined strength population of those backward castes being of around 63% of the total population. So we have to see this move by CM Ashok Gehlot just before the elections, with the fact that lately the Congress has been trying to woo the OBC communities, with the senior Congress MP Rahul Gandhi also routinely saying in his election speeches in states such as MP that the OBCs need greater representation, and he has also been targeting the BJP over it. So the caste survey in Rajasthan at this juncture would mean that if, say, we assume that the results of the survey would be similar to that of Bihar, then there could be a consolidation of the OBC or backward caste vote bank, which traditionally was with Congress, but in recent years the BJP also has got a substantial chunk of it. So this OBC consolidation of castes such as Jat could benefit the Congress. That appears to be the reason for this caste-based survey. Although the government, in its official order, it has said that the survey will be instrumental in identifying various social groups, their standing, and the beneficiaries for welfare schemes, and how welfare schemes can be equitably distributed to all sections of the community.
And what would you say this survey in Rajasthan means for the Congress nationally and the opposition bloc India?
So the Congress has already said that if it comes to power, it will conduct a caste census. So it is among the core agenda of the Congress, and the fact that the India bloc, for example, Bihar is ruled by the JDU and RJD coalition, which is part of the India bloc, and it was Bihar which started this sequence of caste census. So by Rajasthan following it, it would mean that the parties in the India bloc are aligned together in this and are in agreement with the caste census or survey thing. They would try to pitch the Mandal era politics with that of the proverbial Kamandal politics of Hindutva that all the India bloc and the other parties accuse the BJP of practicing. So as a result, this consolidation of backward castes could electorally help the India bloc in the Lok Sabha elections. At least that's what seems to be the idea of the constituent parties at this point of time, given the fact how Rajasthan was very quick to follow the example of Bihar.
Right, and Deep, how are they thinking of going about this? Because it does take time to conduct a survey of such scale, and considering the assembly elections are just a few weeks away, won't that pose a challenge to it?
So it is yet to be seen, because of course it has to be a huge exercise, and the district collectors have been appointed as a nodal officers in every district for conducting the caste-based survey, while the planning department, economic and statistics, has been designated as a nodal department for the survey. And the fact that the elections are just a few weeks away, it seems a bit difficult how the entire exercise could be conducted and then the results are declared in just this short interval. And also the fact is, as the election commission is going to announce the dates of the assembly elections in Rajasthan, so the model code of conduct will also come into force. So as a result, it is yet to be seen if any party goes to challenge this decision of caste survey of Rajasthan government, and what the election commission will decide, whether the survey will continue as the model code of conduct will be in place or will not be allowed to be done. It is again yet to be seen and a matter of question. But at this point, we can say that by agreeing to conduct this caste survey, at least even symbolically, the Congress government in Rajasthan has sent a message that it's desired to conduct this caste survey, which again could help them in the election.
And do we know how has the BJP, which is the main opposition party in Rajasthan, reacted to this announcement?
Yeah, so the opposition BJP has said that it is a ploy or a distraction by CM Ashok Gehlot to divert the attention from other issues, such as the issues which are being raised by the BJP for a long time, such as law and order, crime against women, and what the BJP claims is that the Congress's incompetency when it comes to contesting elections, and that the Congress is on its way out. This is all what the BJP claims, and it is saying that this order of conducting the caste-based survey is an effort by CM Ashok Gehlot to distract the public from the core issues.
And in the end, we talk about the World Cup. On Sunday, India began its World Cup campaign in Chennai, defeating arch-rivals Australia by 6 wickets in a rather thrilling encounter. Despite losing 3 wickets within the first 2 overs, India staged a remarkable comeback thanks to the partnership between Virat Kohli and KL Rahul. Kohli scored 85 runs off 116 balls, while Rahul remained unbeaten on 97, guiding India to victory in 14.2 overs. This win was significant for India since it was against a formidable Australian side, who incidentally had not lost an opening World Cup match since 1992. In this segment, we are joined by Indian Express's Venkata Krishna to talk about this win. Venkat, according to you, what makes India's win against Australia so significant?
It's significant because it's just Australia. Look, Australia is Australia at the World Cup. That is, you never know what sort of Australia team is in the lead up to the World Cup. But at the World Cup, they're always one of the favorites, right? And as far as I started growing up watching Cricket World Cup, be it 96, be it 2003, I've just had very, very bad memories of India versus Australia games in World Cup. 96, there's a heartbreak in Mumbai. 2003, 2 games, one in the league game, one in the final. That was heartbreaking on every front. And then 2011, when India actually managed to beat Australia in the quarterfinals, it felt like, wow, it just felt a so big deal. And 12 years later, nothing has changed. It's still the same. Because yes, in 2015 World Cup, we lost to them in the semi-finals. And in 2019, we did manage to beat them in the league stage. But your opening game of the World Cup against Australia, had things not gone ideal for India, it could have been set some alarm bells actually, especially given the start that India had with the bat while chasing 200. They were 3 down for 2. And it felt like, okay, it's doomsday again, man. It's and then at Chennai, India's ended to a couple of heartbreaks against them actually in 1986 being the tight test, and then a year later in the 1987 World Cup opener as well, where they lost by 1 run. So all these things put together, India versus Australia in a World Cup, it's always significant. And then to chase the total after losing 3 early wickets in 2 overs was just something special. I think it will definitely be one of the classic World Cup games for India going forward.
And Venkat, the partnership between Kohli and KL Rahul obviously stood out. But, and this is something you point in your piece as well, that the win was also made possible because of Indian spinners like Ravindra Jadeja, for example. Talk about him and others a bit.
So, Ravindra Jadeja, his spell was just like outstanding. He took about 4 overs. He was watching Kuldeep Yadav and Ashwin repeatedly miss the edges, right? And he thought, okay, listen, he knew where to bowl on this sort of a pitch, because this is what he does for 2 months, right? In Chennai Super Kings colours, in Chepauk, he knows that, okay, where I should land the deliveries and how to be effective on this sort of a surface. Yes, the first 4 overs, even Jadeja was not exactly hitting the right spots, but he was like giving like nothing away to the batsman. But once he figured that, okay, what I need to do, what sort of a pace I should bowl, he was like simply unplayable. He just took wicket of Steve Smith with a ripper. I think that's got to be probably the ball of the tournament for me. And then to get Labuschagne and carrying in the same over, from there Australia just couldn't recover at all. Yes, the lower order like sort of scored a bit more, but I think the spinners, be it Jadeja, Ashwin and Kuldeep, they did exceedingly well, like 30 overs, 104 runs. That's like tremendous figures actually. They just like strangled Australia, and then KL Rahul and Virat Kohli killed them.
And what would you say was a moment that really stood out to you in this match?
I think the moment that stood out for me was like in the batting front when Virat Kohli and KL Rahul. It was like, see, the 2 for 3 is a period where the panic even set in the dressing room. And yes, it's just a league game. They can always like recover. But it's important for India to address this concern, because it's been an issue for long. When in the Champions Trophy, they lost 2 wickets initially. From there, they couldn't recover. And then 2019 semi-final, again, we were in a similar sort of a thing, losing 3 early wickets. We just never recovered. So even in the past, even in bilateral, there's been a lot of such instances where when the top order fails, the middle order just doesn't get going at all. They are like, just keep going down with them. But here, it was just refreshing to see these two, like, yes, India were lucky to have 2 of their experienced players in that phase as well. But what stood out to me was like how easily these guys like sort of, they realized, yes, they need to like Virat Kohli told KL Rahul, listen, this is going to be like test cricket. Just watch out the spell and then let's move on. That's what they did. And that was like very, very sensible cricket.
And Venkat, based on this win, what do you think we can make of India's chances to lift the trophy this time?
I mean, to start off a win is a very, very big morale booster. And especially a win like this coming against Australia, that too, it definitely is a huge, huge confidence booster for India going ahead. Because you have like Afghanistan up next, and then you have Pakistan coming in. And then each game is important. And for a team, if it is like wants to like, okay, finish on top of the league, you'll get to face any 1 and 4, whatever, the semi-final lineup. It feels like, yes, it gives a bit of an advantage as well. But this sort of events in World Cup, always it's all about building the momentum. And then that's what I keep telling. India ticked a lot of boxes last night, be it like the middle order, be it how the spinners performed. They read the conditions really, really well. Reading the conditions is no easy thing at all, because in October, November with dew around in certain pockets, it's important how India get their bowling combination right as well, based on what the pitch could turn into in the second half of the innings. So all of that put together, they seem to have got it right. Going forward, yes, there will be like lot of challenges. It's like what really encourages India is they found themselves in a lot of difficult situations, and each time they found something, they found some answer to it. I think that's a big thing, and given how they played in the Asia Cup and how they have started the World Cup, I think India have settled like already fired the warning shots. Listen, at this World Cup, we are not going to be pushovers. We are going to be like serious contenders.
You were listening to 3 Things by The Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava, with help from Utsha Sermon, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.